ladies and gentlemen. Hilarious. Remember the names. Ladies and gentlemen, this next comedian, our final comedian of the Laugh University rock block of comedy. You guys ready for one more making their debut? This guy needs no introduction. He's already famous in the podcast world, but now he's doing stand-up. Ladies and gentlemen, the one, the only, Eddie McCabe!
Hello, everybody. I am Eddie McCabe. I'm super happy to be here because I've been having a very weird week. Now, I really have a fear of, the government telling me that I owe them taxes, right? I work in comedy, right? I work in entertainment. So I have odd jobs. I work in 1920s basements talking to strangers. I travel around the world filming, millionaires. It's a very odd thing. So my taxes, as you can imagine, are an absolute nightmare. And I have an irrational fear that one day the government is going to send me a letter and tell me that I owe them millions of dollars that I just straight up don't have because I work in comedy. And so finally this week, my shifts, finally came in. And I got not one, but two letters from the government. One from the state of Maine and one from the state of Massachusetts. I had an existential breakdown and was super worried, and I opened up the letter to find out that I owe child support. Now, I know what you're all thinking. Well, you just must be a deadbeat comedian, Dad. But I can assure you that I have slept with but one person, and they are not from the state of Maine. So I did what any responsible person with anxiety would do and called the government. After being on hold for 45 hours, I finally got through to somebody and said, "Hello, you sent me a letter saying that I owe somebody child support." "That's impossible." And they said, "Sir, who was the letter sent to? If it's not sent to you, you can just send it back and it's no big problem." And I said, "Well, here's the problem. You sent it to Edward McCabe. I am Edward McCabe. The difference is in the initial. You sent it to Edward T. McCabe. I am Edward A. McCabe." Huge difference. Unfortunately, that was not good enough, so I finally met my son the other day, and we're going to the ALCS next week. But really, that got me really thinking about my parents, and my relationship with them. And they're lovely people. I grew up in a very, very affluent suburb of Boston called Newton, Massachusetts. Cool. I think one of you is from here. But they are very sheltered people, let's say, because if you know anything about Newton, Massachusetts, there isn't a lot of what I like to call diversity. We just aren't a very diverse people out in Newton, and that's okay, we get by. But my parents get really worried when I started doing things like traveling. I started traveling for work, I started traveling international, and the first place that I ever went was the Middle East. I went to Dubai, which is the Las Vegas of the Middle East. It's a blast, it's a wild time, it's super, super fun. There's extremely tall buildings, and they give you little cookies and tea, it's very fun. There's, seesaws next to water, and they're really proud of it. It's really fun. But I tell you that because I didn't think anything of it because we came into the country, as you would come into any other country. They welcomed you, we got our bags, we went to the hotel, it was a ton of fun. That was until I tried to leave the country. We get to the airport, and I walk up to the airline attendant, and I hand him my passport, and he looks at it, and he looks at the computer, and he looks at me, and he looks at the computer, and he looks at me, and he just closes it in probably the most ominous way I've ever seen any human being close a passport, and slide it across the table like a Bond villain. And he just goes, "You need to go to room 4. And I'm like, what the hell is room 4? But of course, because I have anxiety, I go, "Of course, sir." And so I walk down this hallway, and inside this hallway, it is just closed door, windows, shades drawn, closed door, windows, shades drawn, closed door, windows, shades drawn, windows, shades drawn, open door. And so I walked in, and I see a gentleman sitting behind a desk. And he is in what you would consider to be full Arab garb, you know, that like head to toe white outfit. It looks very cool, and not in like a Lady Gaga's wearing a meat dress to the VMAs kind of cool, but like it's 1,000,000,000 degrees out, and I'm wearing blue jeans and sweating out of my ass, and would much rather be in that kind of cool. And so I walk up and timidly say to the man, sir, I was told to come to room 4, and I hand him my passport. He, what it feels like is an eternity, is looking at my passport, looking at me, looking at the computer, looking at me. All the while, I am thinking of my parents. Because they warned me about stuff like this, because before we left, we watched the movie Midnight Express. Now, for those of you who don't know what Midnight Express is, it's about a boy who tries to smuggle drugs out of the country and goes to prison. I didn't have any drugs, but for a solid 2 minutes, I was convinced I was trying to smuggle hash. So, I finally get the relief that I'm looking for as the guy looks at me for the final time, and I await his ominous fate, and he just stamps my passport and just goes, our system was down when you were entering the country, so I just needed to enter some stuff, you're good to go. So I picked up the deuce that I had done in my drawers, and I said, thank you very much, and I boarded my plane. Thank you very much. I'm Eddie McCabe.
Eddie McCabe, ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it for him, the one, the only Edward McCabe. Well, that's that. That is our Laugh University rock block. But we still have plenty of great comedy for you guys, and I know you're going to love it. This next comic, he's back.